What's good, YouTube? I am Sad Boy Will, and today we're back for another review of episode 73 and episode 74 of Attack on Titan season 4, the final season. Now, these two episodes aired together basically because last week there was a devastating 7.0 earthquake that affected Japan. So, the creators to, not drive, attention away from the earthquake, decided that they'd rather just hold off on premiering the episode that Sunday and rather just allow the next week, the following week, once some of the relief for the earthquake had settled, to just do a double upload, which they haven't done in some time. I don't recall the last time they did a double upload. So it's very welcome, but also keep the people in Japan and surrounding areas in your prayers. If you know of any relief funds, don't be afraid to leave them in the comments below. Definitely check those out and spread them around best I can. Just so we can show support for the people out there that provides us the content that we look for every week. Crazy thing is, there's only one more episode left in this first part of the season. So once that airs, the first half of season 4 will be done, and we don't know when the rest of the season show will be finished airing. But we do know that there's one last chapter in the manga before the manga ends completely. And by the time I'm recording this, it might already be out, or I'm not sure. I'm strictly anime only, so but I have been hearing that they're on their last chapter. So it's very exciting how all of this is coming together. Before we started skimming through, I just thought that the reason I'm doing this review, because I haven't been keeping up. I've been keeping up with the show, but I haven't been doing reactions or reviews of the shows, just to avoid copyright and whatnot. I know my last Attack on Titan video, it got hit with copyright, but I was able to trim out a portion, and the rest of it was cool to upload. So we're going to try it again for these two episodes. Now, I feel like with there being one episode left in the season, these two episodes went together perfectly. They flawlessly went into each other, and I know it's like the natural progression of the story, but y'all see how this episode ends and how you go into the next episode. It couldn't have been more perfect, outside of the disaster that happened in Japan, that these two episodes would air simultaneously together for everybody to enjoy together, because who doesn't want an hour's worth of Attack on Titan? But anyway, so we start off the episode. Gabby's feeling down on herself. She's conflicted with everything, and Armin's basically telling her yeah, we don't intend on killing you at all. I don't know where you got this idea of us, but this is false. And then Aaron walks in the way Aaron does, with his hand bleeding. This man just shows up. Episode 73, Savagery. And I've watched these two episodes together across several different people that I follow that does reactions, like your boy Roshi, Harmzar, a couple other people did reactions, Rogers Base. So it's cool to see different perspectives and pick up on things that you might have not picked up on yourself. And just watching, these episodes really compelled me. I don't think they were as good as the episode 65, I think, the Declaration of War. But just together, they flowed so beautifully. But you see, they're all sitting at the table. Aaron sitting across from Mikasa, and everybody's just shocked. And his hand is just bleeding. This is the equivalent of holding somebody at gunpoint. Don't move, don't make any sudden movements, don't do anything crazy. We're just gonna sit here and talk. And it's funny because in the previous episode, like Armin and Mikasa wanted to talk to Eren, but they couldn't because of Eren being locked up. But he got out due to the Jaegerists. It was a hilarious name. We could skim across, and then this whole dialogue section is just perfect because they start questioning Eren's motives and what he did in Marley as is not like his character, but he then turns it back on them to say, well, we've all been acting differently than what we used to when we were younger, and it may just be because our bodies are changing, our minds are changing. Like he likens the reason why Armin, and this is a crazy line, but the reason why Armin's been visiting Annie so much recently was because after he ate Bertolt, he began receiving Bertolt's memories and recalling all the fondness that Bertolt had for Annie when they were both alive. So, you know, Armin saying like, "Hey, I'm doing this based off of my will and my will only," but Eren's like, "Well, are you?" Because I truly believe that you're acting on not only your own will, but the will of Bertolt as well, because you've inherited his memories and possibly some of his emotions, which I see is the case for Eren. Like Eren's the whole persona change didn't occur just because he saw the travesty that was affecting Eldians and the people of Paradis, but he was also seeing all of the memories that his father had and the previous founding Titan, and the lineage of like people, the owl. Like he has so many memories from so many different perspectives, and it might just be all through Grisha's standpoint. He might not actually be getting like the owl's memories or the previous founding Titans memories, even though I think we saw that he did. I'm not sure, but you know, he's experiencing everything at least from Grisha's standpoint, and Grisha totally hated Marley, and he also felt super conflicted about, you know, everything that was going on, and we'll see more of that when we get into episode 74 from a different perspective. But this one screen still right here where he says, I said keep your hands on the table, is just so chilling, because these are like best friends. They all grew up together, and they've been fighting constant battles against Marley and against who they deem as the enemy for so long, and now he's kind of putting down his foot, saying like, hey, y'all don't like the way I'm doing things, but listen, my word is law right now. Like, I have a whole regime against me that's revolting. And somebody said this in one of the reactions I saw, but it seems as though that Eren might be doing a play where he's only being this stern and strict with these two and everybody else for their own safety. Like, he plans to, it's like that tough love that, you know, it's just, I'm doing this for your best interest. Y'all might not like what I'm doing, y'all might not understand it, but you have to trust me on this. And, you know, Zeke, he goes in about Zeke knowing, and he wants to meet up with Zeke to follow through with their plan. Yeah, he tells Armin about Bertolt, and then this whole scene with him and Mikasa, where he's breaking down like your Ackerman blood is let me just let this play. He's like, the Ackermans were designed to be like the protectors of the Eldian King and the royal bloodline, and it's just like you've never fought on your own behalf because you felt like you loved me. You were only fighting so hard because it's the Ackerman bloodline. You know what I'm saying? And they go into the whole detail of like when Ackerman sense that the royal blood is being affected, they get these headaches and migraines. And she thought this whole time she was acting for her love of Eren, but really it was just her bloodline. Yeah, she was like, I became strong of you, but it was like, no. And we see that to be true when he really digs into her, and I'm just waiting for the scene to pop up in this dialogue where Aaron makes a somewhat harsh statement towards Mikasa, saying that hold on, let me scroll. Do you know who I hate more than anyone? Those who aren't free, just like livestock. Here it comes. And then Armin's trying to like push everything off. You have always pissed me off so I finally know why. And he's like, y'all are all slaves to your worldly emotions. And he's like, ever since I was little, Mikasa, I've hated you. And that's just crushing. Like, you see Mikasa tearing up, and Mikasa's always like this very stoic and very stern personality that rarely shows emotion unless it involves Eren. And you see him just literally just destroy her emotionally. And I don't know, like, she's always going to protect Eren because we're about to see in a second, but and the fact that she does love him, but the fact that he's caused this great pain, I don't know how Mikasa's character develops after this. Like, her whole character development has been following and pursuing and Eren to, like, it's kind of like the Naruto Sasuke dynamic where Naruto's just like, I am going through hell and high water to get you back, to bring back my friend, because I love you so much, and I can't help her. I can't fathom and bear seeing you in so much pain, even though you're acting nonchalant and cold shoulderish. Like, so then then Armin's like, enough, and he reaches over the table, and Mikasa just slams him into the table, protecting Eren. And we think, oh, it's because Mikasa doesn't want them to fight. But then this still right here, watch this still real closely. She realizes that she wasn't in control at that point. That she acted out of instinct and not out of intelligence or free will. That was purely instinct. Like, Eren just crushed her. She has no reason to protect him from Armin because she knows that Armin is no threat to Eren. But the instinct of the Ackermans, being signaled by people of royal blood or the king with the founding titan, like, she can't control it. Yeah, and he breaks it down. Like, she's like total in shock. Like, everything she felt like she's known has been a lie. And Armin just falcon punches Eren right through the table, which I'm surprised that Mikasa didn't stop him then. Like, you would think that this fight would have never happened because Mikasa stopped Armin the first time, but she didn't stop him the second time. And then Mappa loves these fight scenes. Mappa's been doing their things with showing characters getting beat up. If y'all watch Jujutsu Kaisen, bruh, it seems like every villain in that show is just getting pieced up. And then this scene between Eren and Armin just gets his shit thrashed, man. Like, they go 1-on-1. They shot the ones, and Eren just demolishes Armin. But of course, Armin was never a fighter. He was a strategist. See how Mikasa, if the roles were reversed, Mikasa would have stopped Armin. But since Eren is in control, she doesn't even budge. She just says, "Stop, Eren," and he just totally demolishes Armin. And he's taking him along with him, going on his way to Zeke. Oh yeah, I almost forgot this part where Armin was like, "Tell me he was the slave that bows to a bastard again," and it's just like, bruh, like, such cold and like slicing words, and Eren feels that. But what hurts probably is that Eren probably thinks what he's doing is best, and that he's being villainized among everybody he knows and loves. but obviously the world is on his shoulders. Like, he is the key to everything. So it's just like, what solution do you come to that not pleases everybody but can resolve the issue at hand? So we end that scene, and then we go. Which this is a dope still. Wait, of what when Eren first crystallized, and Shigashina. Hold on. Wait, no. I wanted to see this. I wanted to see the still of the Titan right here. This is so dope. This is a dope. Like, like this is such a dope screen. Like, oh my god. So then we go into the forest, and with Zeke and Levi, and Levi and Zeke are going at it, mouthing off at each other basically. And Levi's is basically like, yeah, no, like, we can't allow Zeke to just sit here until Eren comes, because they already been given word about what's going on within the walls. So Levi's just like, yeah, I gotta cut this guy up and feed him to somebody. This Titan has to go over to somebody else's, because there's something that's going on that we don't know about, and we can't allow Zeke and Eren to get together, because one, if the rumbling happens, there's no way to stop it. There's just no way. No matter how much firepower, no matter how many reinforcements, nothing is going to stop the rumbling if it occurs. And Zeke and them mouth off, and he's asking, is there any wine left? And we know from the last episode that there's been Zeke's spinal fluid put in wine, and they go into detail about that, but and the higher ups have been the ones drinking it. So I'm guessing, well, I'm not guessing, but pretty much they got a shipment of that wine here into the forest as well. And we see Levi walking away, and might I just say, Levi's one of the craziest characters I've ever seen in anime. Like, you got some anime characters who are just like dope. Like, I just got finished watching the time I was reincarnated as a slime. The last episode, was it episode 34 of season 2, where I'm not going to go into detail, but you see the characters just go in. Like, I've never seen such brutality among characters, but Levi takes the cake, because he like serves that up so effortlessly throughout this whole show. And we see Zeke get up, start running, because his plan is now in motion, and it's now or never. And we seen in the last episode where they gassed the people of that village and use Zeke's voice to and his Titan power to kind of send communication or some type of signal to the brains or whatever of people who have his spinal fluid of Eldian blood that can transform into Titans. And you see here this beautiful shot where all of the troops that have been drinking the wine, they start falling out of the sky, falling from the trees, transforming right on top of Levi. And Levi's in just disbelief. It's really hard to like knock Levi off of his like square, but this totally like turned everything upside down on Levi. Like, he had no, like, he's stunned. And they go into detail about the spinal wine fluid, and that we see everybody like miles away within the walls, like feeling it, but of course, like, obviously they're too far to be transformed, which is scary, because if Zeke somehow gets back in the city, that can potentially be dangerous. He can cause his own rumbling, not with colossal titans, but regular titans just within the walls, if he was to ever get within the walls. And one thing I noticed about these two episodes, because episode 74 is more of a flashback episode, there's not really like any progression, but we don't see Peak anywhere. We know that Peak is within the town, so we don't know what her role is. Eren's taking Gabby. We don't know where Falco is. Um, um, and like Peak is just somewhere, just doing some surveillance intel. So we don't know what she's planning. Uh, oh, there's Falco. Oh yeah, they're all together. Zeke's running off, and these Titans are coming at Levi, but Levi's just like, I can't hurt my fellow comrades, man. Um, and apparently, like, for some reason, I guess since they have his spinal fluid, they're like enhanced in the capabilities, but Levi doesn't care. That's Levi the God. When I first watched this, I thought that we'll see a little later on that Levi found a way to spare them. Spare them all, because you see the husk of the body just all laying there, and look at this magnificent shot of him just descending upon Titans. But I think like he just ends up killing them, like giving them a peaceful end. And like towards the end of the episode, we kind of get confirmation of that through Zeke and Levi's dialogue. Might I say that these Titans running will never get old, bro. This band is doing the floss on the right. But Levi is never going to allow Zeke to just get the upper hand on him. Like Levi is like 3-0 on Zeke. And look at this masterfulness. Like he's just slicing through them. Like he hasn't even upgraded his gear. He just used the same gear that they've always used. And here's Zeke transforming into the beast. Which is like, it was probably better off if Zeke stayed in like his human form, because he has a losing record against Levi in this form. Like, bro, like this is like he's never. And the CGI looks good. Like, I'm glad people have gotten over complaining about CGI, because it's actually looking good. Like, Mappa is doing their thing with both Jujutsu Kaisen and Attack on Titan. And it's sad because both of them are ending this week. Jujutsu Kaisen is on this last episode of the season. Hopefully it comes back later on this year. And then Attack on Titan's on this last episode of the halfway season. They do like the first 24 episodes of the season, and then they take a break, and then resume the rest of the season later, like they did in season 3. But this masterfulness of like Levi like doing a Uno reverse card, like how Zeke dropped Titans on him, he's dropping tree branches on him, trying to confuse him, and like always, Levi takes the dub over Zeke. Levi is just too much for Zeke, bro. And in best case scenario, I wish, I know this is not how it happens, but I wish Levi would have inherited the Beast Titan, because we see Levi talking about getting somebody to eat the Beast Titan for so long. And let me pause here, because this scene is fucking crazy. But we hear Levi talking about getting somebody to eat Zeke, because they feel like Zeke has some type of power over Eren, and that he's kind of persuading him to kind of run along with his plan, which is somewhat the case. But at the same time, I feel like Eren has like ulterior motives. But I would have hoped that like Levi ate Zeke and could be a Titan shifter, just because like it's only right. Like every time that Levi and Zeke have gone face to face, or Levi and the Beast Titan have gone face to face, he's conquered it. And the only way to make Levi even more stronger than what he is if he became a Titan shifter. Which, now that I think about it, how this episode ends, now I'll bring it up once we get to the end of this episode. But look at Zeke, man. Zeke is just demolished. Like, we've seen Zeke pretty beat up a lot of times, but nothing of this sort. Like, this man's nose is gone. Like, imagine just getting blown up at point blank range. And Levi just calls him an ugly piece of shit. Levi is 3-0 against Zeke right now. Look at that thick monkey butt. And then we see this. You see the bottom of his jaw like move. So I don't know what that means. But then we go back into the walls, and this whole thing with the regime and Keith. I forget what his last name is. He's just trying to rally his troops together, but they're not hearing it. They're too interested in following Aaron for the most part, and some of them are cowards and scared. But then we see, one of them speak up, and then kind of gets the crowd going, and then enter Flock, enter Flock with Hanji and fucking handcuffs. Y'all need to free the waifu, free Hanji till it's backwards. And they got Blix, and Flock, even though he's progressed as like a main villain of the show now. This is weird because in season 3, like, he was very like headstrong against what Aaron was doing because it cost a lot of people their lives. But now seeing them two like work together is kind of weird, and it's giving Flock this kind of like false bravado that he's like this super evil head leader, but he points the gun at Keith and he misses his shot. I don't know if he misses the shot on purpose, but he misses, and he's trying to shoot what's his name, and then he beckons all the regime to basically beat up Keith, which Keith replies with such a badass statement, like, yeah, like, they might bruise me up, but like there's no way they're beating me, which is essentially, and I saw this through a reactor's POV, that just like I was saying how Aaron's kind of doing this for the betterment of his people, Keith allowed himself to get beat up till he couldn't walk to prevent his troops from getting shot and possibly like tortured by Flock and the Jaegerists. So it was really nice seeing it, and like Mappa was like, we're not gonna show you. Mappa shows a lot of gruesome stuff, but I'm glad they didn't show Keith getting beat up, because he didn't deserve that. Yeah, so you just go through all this exposition. Oh, wait. Yeah, they beat him up, but they're bruised up too, and it kind of seems like they weren't super, willing to do that to him, but they understood the situation. And he's like, no matter how many of these times there are, they're no match for me. Such a badass. And I'm glad they didn't show him getting beat up, because that would have been hard to watch. They've shown Gabby getting beat up twice so far, but I'm glad they didn't show him getting beat up. Like, look how bruised he is. And you see everybody's locked up, and Aaron's contemplating. And then we wake up to Levi confronting Zeke once again, and this is gruesome. When I first saw this episode, I was like, thank God they didn't show Keith getting beat up. But the scene with Levi and Zeke right here is just gruesome. Like, they were like, Zeke's trying to recover, but he looks like a pepperoni pizza with a lot of marinara, and he's tied up, and he has a thunder spear in his ribs and tied to his neck. So if he moves too much, like, that thing will go off, which I don't know if Levi accounted for it, because he's kind of pretty much in blast range as well. But they go into a little dialogue, and then Levi just lets out all his aggression. He's just like, you've killed all my people, and he was like, oh, you're recovering, let me cut off your foot, let me cut off your feet. And the fact we saw him literally slice that, and then him just think about this, try to imagine this. You got a super large explosive in your abdomen while you're trying to recover. tied to your neck, and this dude's slashing away at your feet, and you're trying your best not to move because you don't want to explode. And he's just wailing on him. He's just wailing on him. And it's just like, bro, how do you not move, bro? I will be squirming and moving and trying to run away, but he has to endure it. He has to endure that pain, because if he doesn't, he's gonna die. And we see him go into like an exposition about where's his glasses, which leads perfectly into episode 74, where we get Zeke's backstory. Excuse me. And Zeke just seems so out of it. He seems like he's finally gotten despair, and we see him playing catch with this mysterious it's the former Beast Titan, Tom I don't know his name. Now the only thing, like, this is gonna be my Mappa CGI rant, because you know, I'm not ranting about the CGI. I actually love the CGI that Mappa's been doing. But this is the problem that I have with Mappa and Attack on Titan, man. This last season, they have too many small blonde kids running around. When I first saw the trailer, I thought that this was a young, because we see young Zeke playing baseball with somebody or whatnot. And being introduced to Falco, Colt, Reiner, and Zeke, there's too many young blonde characters to keep up with. They all look the same, and I always get confused whenever I see them. I thought this was Falco when I first saw him, and then in the trailer, but then I learned that it's Zeke, and then we also saw young Reiner, which I also thought was either Falco or Colt. And it's like, give these anime characters some distinct styles, like Flock with his red head and his swoop. Like, I'm tired of these young blonde boys. Ever thought of playing baseball? Which is Miss Saver, which is very, very we'll get into that in the next episode. But yeah, we see him playing with this person, and that's how that episode ends. So let me get over to episode 74 real quick. Hold on. Alright, so now we're going to episode 74, which I don't remember what this episode was called. It'll tell us, but he's looking at the city of Libero, and Marley, and we see him with Grisha. Oh, let's change this quality. It's supposed to be 720p. You see with Zeke with his father and mother, Grisha and Dina. And this whole episode is a backstory of Zeke, and how, like, it was a duality of what he was learning from his Eldian heritage from both sides of his family. You had his grandparents, who basically were content with being Eldians within the Marleyan, city, while Grisha and Dina obviously wanted to break away from that. And then we see the mistreatment of them, which basically only fuels Grisha's, like, animosity towards these people, because obviously he has, like, some pride in his Eldian race, and the more as he, like, meets, like, the owl and, like, the Eldian restorationists, like, it kind of fuels him to, like, plan and try to get Zeke to, like, infiltrate Marley, like, the warrior thing, so Zeke could become a warrior candidate, and, like, they have somebody on the inside of Marley. And we see Tom, he's absorbing, because his time is coming up. Excuse me. But we see here, just from here, I know Zeke's young in this, but he's like a runt. Like, he doesn't seem like he's anywhere genetically like matured. Like he's smaller than all of the other um, candidates. He's slower. He's like a little boy, and they're like really trying to push. Well, Grisha is trying to push him so he could be best, and then they drop him off with his grandparents so they could go talk to the restorationalists, and we see Grisha's father, and Grisha going back and forth about things. Which, funny enough, nobody closed the door in this whole episode. All the doors have been open while they're having important conversations because they don't care who hears. And we see uh, um, his grandfather, Zeke's grandfather, basically telling the tale of when I guess the first rumbling happened. Not necessarily a rumbling, but when Titans started arriving and like triumphing other countries and lands, which I feel like, and this is just my big brain theory, that with Zeke learning this history and whatnot, I feel like there's some way, because we saw in season 3 when the owl met Grisha and revealed himself to be the Attack Titan, he mentioned arming Mikasa and Eren before Eren was even born. And I feel like, in a sense, history repeats itself. The subjects of Ymir will eventually rise, and this is going to be the end result. It's going to be another situation where Titans will be crossing land in heats, just like the rumbling, and trying to take over and flatten the earth. And this is basically the telling of that story from the Marlenian side. His grandparents are basically telling him like, hey, the Titans are evil, Eldians are evil, look at all the death that they caused, whoop-de-whoop. And then he even questions if his dad is teaching him the right history, which he's teaching him the history of the Eldians, but it's not the same as the Marleyan history. What's going on? I ain't got no water. All this talking gives my throat a little scratchy. But yeah, it's really just the men in his family, because the women seem to be chill. And we see his dead aunt who died to Marleyan, and he's gone. Like, he's slower, smaller. Zeke just sucks. Zeke just sucks at this point. And all he really wants to do is just be a kid. And you see all the kids playing with their parents, and he's envious of that because he never got the chance at that for real. Even when he ends his training, he comes in and he, is like, Dad, I finished, and he's like, oh, you could study more about, Eldia and Marleyans. And he's just like, I just want to play with it. And here's his dad here's Grisha telling him the retelling of the story from the same book, but he's basically like, that shit never happened. They're lying about this, which could be true. I don't know if it's true or not, because we obviously learned that the hero of, I forget what it was called, but that Willie was telling people of, that Marleyans like worship, he basically pulled the lid off of it. It was like, that shit didn't exist. That hero never exists. It was a story made up by King Fritz in order to like save face. So he's telling them this, and then we look at Zeke compared to all the other kids, and they have to be around the same age, so it's like no excuse for like Zeke, like, he's obviously shorter, smaller. He's the runt of the group, and like he's suffering from that. So he has to find another way to kind of um, get in as a warrior candidate because he's not going to do it off of strength alone, which is when he meets Tom Christopher, the original Beast Titan, who introduces him to baseball, which is very, very interesting and poetic. As we know, the Beast Titan, at least from Zeke's perspective, has always been like throwing stuff. Like, that's his technique. Like, he's not really a close quarter type fighter. Like, the Beast Titan hasn't really been seen doing anything outside of being a ranged fighter. You know, balling stuff up and throwing it. We even saw in Zeke's his last fight with Levi. He ripped that Titan in half and started throwing them. So you know, they kind of bond because Tom has kind of been like scouting, trying to see who's the next candidate, and I guess he's taking a liking to him. And we learn because of his tragic backstory that here's another door that's not open. We learn because of his tragic backstory that, you know, he kind of took a liking to Zeke. And here's Grisha and his dad arguing. Oh no, here's Grisha and the owl talking about the restorationalists and whatnot, and he's peeking in because nobody closes the goddamn door in the house. Did y'all not learn anything from Panic in the Disco? And we see Grisha like mauling over like Zeke's like inadequacy because he's like, if he never gets into the warrior candidate process, then we're fucked. We're like, our plan can't continue. And like, you know, Zeke, being the good son that he is, tries to force his way back into the warrior candidate, but we see him like trailing behind all of the kids. Like, he really he really didn't grow, and you can see like the other disgust and sorrow and despair in Grisha's face, which you should never do that. Like, even if your kid like isn't like progressing the way you think they should, you should never look down on your kid in that way to show your like distaste, and like, because that's your kid at the end of the day. You should love them regardless. But I understand that Grisha had a plan that he wanted, that was resting on Zeke being a warrior candidate, which it didn't seem likely. But you know, Zeke being the Zeke and Tom, I have to give it to Tom because in this whole scene where they're arguing, like where Grisha and Dina is arguing in the background, it's just so hard. Coming up like with like parents that argue, if you had your parents like arguing like in other rooms while you were younger, like this was one of the hardest scenes that I've seen, because I know the reality of this. And your parents argue was seemingly over you. He just has to endure it, and just like driving him like to the brink because he wants to prove to himself to his dad, but then he also just wants to be a kid. And then he also has his grandparents that are trying to like, you know, just make sure that he has a nice easy life. So he's being pulled three which ways. And then here's where the previous Beast Titan comes, and you know, they're continuing to build their bond and whatnot. And eventually Zeke tells him of like what's going on in his life. And we also learned that Tom, the Beast Titan, was never like, we know Zeke now as the war chief Zeke. Like, he's like the mastermind behind all of the planning of the Titan candidates and whatnot. And it's interesting because the Beast Titan, like I said, isn't good at close quarters. So he kind of stands back, and we hear from Tom firsthand, like, I'm never really out in the battlefield like that because, you know, I'm not skilled in combat. Like, I'm just a regular guy. So, you know, his thing is he's a Titan researcher. Like he digs into a lot of Titan stuff, and we hear him talk about the subjects of Ymir and King Fritz and how Titan bodies work and how the king changed the bodies of Eldian people who shared the blood of Ymir and whatnot. And he says some pretty interesting stuff that I don't know too much into because I don't read the manga. But it's interesting seeing that the Beast Titan was never like really this warrior. But Zeke took what he learned from Tom and kind of implemented it into making the Beast Titan like one of the scariest Titans of the 9 with his whole throwing ability. So he kind of like remixed the Beast Titan to make it useful, which is why he's now the war chief. So he's talking about Ymir here, and he knows a lot about the Titans. I don't know if it's because he's gained memories from the previous Beast Titan, or maybe he's just been researching a lot, but I don't even know how you research something like that. To look through Titan's memories, shorten his life to look through Titan's memories. Like his time is coming up. Yeah, he says he's pretty useless to war, but he doesn't want to fight anyway. And another door opened while they're talking, and now he learns that the Marleyans know about the Eldian restorationalists, and he's like, damn, they're about to send us all the way to Paradis, so I gotta go tell my parents. But Gracia's not gonna listen. He's just disappointed, and it's kind of like do or die for him at this point. And like they get into an argument over Faye, his aunt Faye, who died to the Marleyans, which makes it understandable. Like a lot of people were like mad at Grisha for his stance of how he was raising Zeke, which he was a bad parent, but at the same time, it was like you're raising your child in the same system that you were raised in and your sister was raised in, and you witness them literally murder and maul your sister, who was just about the same age as Zeke is right now, for no good reason. So of course you don't want to raise your child, to like, obviously, he wasn't able to become a warrior candidate and do it. So the only other option was to have his son go through the procedures to become one, so that they can finally find some liberation with them among themselves. Which is, as understandable. I understand Grisha's standpoint. Like I said, this doesn't excuse him from being a horrible parent. Like, obviously, you have some transparency with your child about what's going on and why we can't just simply just spend a bulk of our time playing together and you having a childhood, because this is some serious stuff that we're getting into. And now Zeke realizes it, and he's just like, stop doing dangerous stuff. But it's like, we're too deep in at this point. I've lost my little sister to this. Like we can't just like excuse this. And then, not knowing what to do, Zeke goes to Tom. Why did I call him Brian? And he's basically saying his goodbyes. And then Tom is just in an urgent moment, is just like, big brain, report your parents. They're only going to be sent off. And you're going to live with your grandparents. And then we can continue our relationship. And then that way, since you ratted out your own family, that'll be your way into... You're strategizing your way into the warrior candidate, which then, even if you're not like up to par in like, physical attributes, like you could be an asset as far as like intel and research. So he's basically formulating a plan to where Zeke can become the next inheritor of the Beast Titan, and it's only by ratting out his parents. And for their own good, like Dina he basically sent his parents off to their deaths because Dina got turned into a Titan, and Grisha was supposed to get turned into a Titan, but the owl saved them. Um, but this is the only way that Zeke could finally have a father, and then two kind of still still adhere to Grisha's plans, because now he's a warrior candidate, and now he's the new Beast Titan, and this is all that Grisha really wanted. And luckily Grisha made it out and remarried and had Eren. And then we see when the flash forward after all of that happened, that Zeke finally had his growth spurt. He finally became a man. And he still looks like fucking Colt. So we see Peak, Bertolt, Reiner, Pac, and Marco, and Annie straggling behind as they're the new warrior candidates for the other Titans. He's talking about releasing a whole thing about the Founding Titan and the Savagery mirror. And apparently this information is like super important because it goes into people of royal blood of the king being able to autonomously change the anatomy of their bodies, like how we see Zeke yell in the forest, and then all the people who have the Titan serum in them change. So he learns about that early on, and I guess Zeke gets everything that he's known. And we get some backstory with these plague doctors. What the fuck? And this was only 600 years ago. 600 years is a long time, but like think about 600 years from now, the 1400s. Like it's not like super far away. Like only 600 years ago, this happened, and a pandemic devastated the population, and this disease fell upon everybody. But with the king and the subjects of Ymir, they were able to create an immunity to this disease, and also led to the idea of changing how their bodies work, which made allow the Eldians to become Titans. And so that's apparently an important clue to everything. And then we see that flashback of the guy that was harassing Zeke and his parents. And we see, can we make the Founding Titan make it so subjects of the Ymir can't bear children? And they're talking about possibly, we learn later that they use the word euthanization. Basically, if we stop Eldians from being able to conceive, then the Titan problem wipes out in about 100 years. The last living Titan is gonna die out. And that way we solve the problem of like Eldians and Titans and Devils of Parity and whatnot, which ignites the idea in Zeke's brain as this is his plan. Like the original plan between Eren and Zeke was to cause the rumbling, but we now know that Zeke's ulterior motive is basically to cause the euthanization of Eldians, to stop them from being able to bear children, which is why we'll see a little bit later on that him turning people into Titans, either gassing villages or having people drink his Titan serum is basically him being like, well, now y'all have part of my blood. Y'all basically are subjects of Ymir, and y'all have not only royal blood, but my Titan spinal fluid, which I could call out to you. So if I was to come in contact with Eren, who has the Founding Titan, I could pretty much change your anatomy so that you can't bear children, and you'll just turn into Titans. And we hear Tom's backstory about how he removed his armband, got married, had children, and then when they find out that he was Eldian, his wife killed her son and then killed herself because she couldn't bear being with a Eldian, a devil. And you see him picking up the baseball, which is which this scene, as gruesome as it was very beautifully put. You see him grabbing the baseball from his child, and it transferred him picking up the baseball from him playing with Zeke. That was animated beautifully, and he's committed his life to his Titan research so that he could redo the world for the better. So things like that wouldn't happen anymore, where Eldians and Marleyans could coexist, or Eldians wouldn't be seen as like these devils. And that's when we see Zeke take on the Beast Titan. And then Tom basically tells him about you need to find somebody you can trust who has the founding Titan, because you have royal blood. So you can make all of this happen with that power, and you just have to be the key to the lock that is the founding Titan. And we see him eating whatchamacallit, and he calls Tom father. So pretty much for the last, so Zeke was probably what 10, 11, 12. We see Zeke at 16, 17, 18 possibly. So Tom, even though his grandparents are around, he's taking Tom in as his basically his father, his stepfather. He even refers to Grisha as that father. When questioning about Eren, and he feels like Grisha somewhat was doing the same thing to Eren that he was doing to Zeke, and that's why he felt the need to go rescue Eren, which I didn't pick up at first, but I think it was one of the reactors I saw. They were like, oh, so when they first invaded, when we first met the Beast Titan, they were really just trying to bring Eren home. Like, they had no ulterior motives to like sacrifice Eren or anything. They were really just wanted to get Eren away from Grisha and everything that went on. Because I don't know if they thought they knew Grisha had the attack Titan at that point. They just knew Grisha had fled and whatever. But no, they knew, because they knew that the founding Titan hadn't been inherited. Somebody had stole the founding Titan, which was why they thought it was Eren, but it was really Grisha. I believe he said his father's missing and used to be a doctor, and he found out that they shared the same dad, so he was just like, no, we need to go rescue Eren. Like, he was really just concerned because he felt that Grisha was ruining his life with his plan, basically to stop Marlene's. And he says, unbelievable, that father was alive, in disbelief, as in referring to Grisha, and like, man, that's your dad. Like, you spent 5 years with Tom, and well, I guess so, because he was more of a father to Zeke than Grisha was, that Zeke felt. So it's crazy, and he's turmoil, and he's like, Eren, we're victims, you've been brainwashed. So he felt the need to go get Eren from out of that situation. Then we come to the meeting of Zeke and Eren, which is crazy, because I wonder how this came about. They don't really go into detail how Zeke found out that Eren was in Marley. We know that Falco was sending like letters back and forth to people, but I think that was more so the people to parody and not Zeke himself. But somehow they found each other, and they had this dialogue where they basically came to a plan. They came to a decision that they were going to work together to achieve a goal, which the goal originally was the rumbling, but Zeke has his own motives to basically euthanize Eldians, and he tells them that. But it wasn't that Eren didn't know about the euthanization. It was that everybody else in Parody thought the rumbling was the plan to counteract like Marley and their united forces from coming trying to destroy Parody. And he talks about the memories of he getting Gracia, seeing Gracia basically kill the royal family. And you know, they're basically on one accord about Grecia's past transgressions and how everything is. But I feel like Eren also has an ulterior motive that he's not really explicitly saying right now. But you know, Zeke wants to just eradicate the Eldians from either giving childbirth or just turning everybody into Titans and flattening the world. So his own idea of the rumbling, instead of the Titans within the walls, just making people Titans. Yeah, he said, I'll put it into the 2,000 years of Titan domination. So they agree upon it. And it's funny because they can't really shake hands because they don't know what had happened because of the royal blood and the Titan and the founding Titan. So just like how Tom was the olive branch to Zeke, Zeke basically does the olive branch and passes him the baseball that Tom originally had, which is like their sign of their union. And Eren catches it. And then we come back into present day, and this ends so perfectly. And this goes back to my theory that Levi possibly will inherit the Beast Titan, because in the trailer, if you paid close attention, I went back to watch the trailer maybe a week ago for the season 4. And I noticed that there was somebody that looked like they were dying. And we noticed that as the season went on, we noticed that the new scout regimen, they have like these black sleek suits and whatnot. So they've upgraded the material. The only person that's still wearing the original scout regimen like stuff is Levi. And we see the character, we can't really see his face, we just see the outfit. And it's raining and it's dark out, and it looks like that character is dead. And I can only assume that happens after this, where they're talking about whatever, and Levi's about to slash his legs again. But Zeke's like, nah, this is my last stance. If I don't do anything right now, it'll be all for nothing. So he basically pulls the trigger on the Thunder Spear, and he's like, Mr. Craver, I hope you're watching. And he makes his last stand. And this is so beautifully, like, look at the raindrops. This is so beautifully, like, and then the thing just goes off, and Levi's within proximity. Zeke blows himself to pieces. We see Levi flying. We see Zeke flying. The horse is on fire. That was probably the most gruesome part of it all. And it goes into to be continued. I'm not going to show the preview, but just know the last episode will be airing this Sunday. And I feel like Levi is going to be on the brink of death, and then somehow he's going to somehow turn into a Titan and eat Zeke and become the Beast Titan. I'm hoping that's what happens. I hope Levi just doesn't die right there. But it would be it's the last episode of the half season, so it would only make sense. But we've seen characters of like with Armin, like we thought Armin was dead, but he somehow survived long enough to get some Titan serum and then eat Bertolt and become the Colossal Titan. So I'm hoping, I have my hopes These were two phenomenal episodes that meshed well together. Like, I couldn't imagine seeing these episodes a week between each other, because it's separate. They probably feel more dragged out and more like monotonous, because you have such a action packed heavy episode as Savagery episode 73, and then you kind of go into this backstory, this emotional backstory of Zeke in episode 74, and it's just like, how am I supposed to? But it all meshes well together so well, and even though under the circumstance that it happened, the earthquakes, I never wished that on anybody, but the fact that it was from that we were able to get these double episodes was awesome. I thought they were just going to give us episode 73 this week, and then it would have just been pushed back, and we got episode 74 the following weekend, 75. But I'm glad we got these episodes together. Anyway, guys, that's my review and theories of like Attack on Titan. We have one more episode left. I don't think I will be doing a review or a reaction to that unless I feel like super compelled to. Like I said, I rarely do these reactions / reviews for Attack on Titan because copyright is heavy. But it just seemed too perfect to not come up here and do it. I wish I could have did it for Jujutsu Kaisen, because that show is going off right now too. Mappa's 2 for 2. And they're supposed to be coming out with Chainsaw Man. If you're familiar with that manga, this year I believe. So Mappa's really doing their thing. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna leave you off with that. If you enjoy it, like, comment, subscribe. Be sure to share with your friends. Follow me on all my socials, and I will catch y'all in the next one, man.